I've come up with a solution to this. I think what the government should do now is introduce something called liberty of motion for European Union countries. And although, sadly, it won't be reciprocated because we're not members of the single market anymore, and therefore we won't be able to enjoy freedom of movement, which is very, very different from liberty of motion, we will be able to offer liberty of motion to our former partners in Europe, and citizens of those countries will be free to come and work here in pretty much any circumstances they want. So you just heard there that the requirement to be able to be a certain level of proficiency in English would need to be relaxed in order to solve the problem in the abattoirs. Perhaps the wage ceilings would have to be relaxed in order to solve the problems in other agricultural sectors, or maybe not, in hospitality and catering, or lorry drivers, veterinarians, whatever the reasons may be. Eventually, so many different sectors will be calling for special exemptions from the rules, special visas specific to their sector, that it will be harder to find sectors that don't need special exemptions than it will be to find sectors that do. And at that point, a clever Conservative politician will stand up and bring in something called liberty of motion, which bears no resemblance whatsoever to freedom of movement. And that, I think, is now on the horizon. They are welcome to borrow my name for it. I would not even demand a small royalty. It is my gift to the nation as a patriot, as the presenter of the Great British Radio Show. I would like nothing more than for this government to take up my suggestion that if they introduce liberty of motion and stress at every turn that it bears no resemblance whatsoever to that pile of old pants that we used to call freedom of movement. Oh no, sirree, Bob. Nothing like it at all. Liberty of motion is our future. Freedom of movement is for Johnny Foreigner, and frankly, they can stick it where the sun don't shine. Liberty of motion is the British approach, albeit that it will only be for foreigners to come here. And we won't enjoy any reciprocal freedom of movement, because who wants freedom of movement? Best thing we ever did was abolish freedom of movement. But they can have liberty of motion because they're just foreign, frankly, and they're not like us. So we won't have any of it. We won't have liberty of motion or freedom of movement because, frankly, we don't need it. Rule Britannia. Britannia waives the rules. But liberty of motion for all European Union citizens so that we can begin to fill up the holes everywhere from driving petrol tankers to packing gammon steaks in meat processing plants.